Welcome everybody to Angel Heart Radio. I'm Annette McCoy, and it's always my joy to be with you. So thank you for joining us. Dr. Robyn Mills is with me today, and those of you who have been following Angel Heart Radio will remember that Robyn was on way back in the beginning. So it's a joy to have you today, Robyn. Thank you so much for being here. May I do a little bit of housekeeping before we start? If you are watching this anywhere else but on Angel Heart Facebook page, Angel Heart Radio Facebook page, would you please go there, because then you can join in the conversation, and we love to hear your conversation. And the other thing to remember is that these shows should never replace your legal, medical, nor professional advice, nor your own sound judgment. So here we are, Robyn. Not a lot has changed except that we can see each other rather than just hear each other. And isn't that a joy?
It's fantastic, and thank you for that beautiful welcome. It's really lovely to be able to see your face after all the times that we've talked together, or audio. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, and I think it's so much nicer for our audience as well, because for goodness me, all of those years we were simply voices over the airwaves, and now we can see faces, which is really wonderful. It brings, I think, us closer to our audience.
It does.
Now, you have many, many hats, and you've had lots and lots of experiences. I get the feeling that grandparenting is one of the highlights. It brings such joy, does it not?
Grandparenting. Oh, Annette, nobody tells you about the joy that it is to be a grandmother, to actually hold a baby that one of your children has brought into the world. And I like to say that grandparenting is a circle of life. It's the gift that your children give back to you. And I think I've become a better person from being a grandparent. I'm a bit softer around the edges.
Yeah.
And you know, my kids will say, Mum, that's not what you said to us. You said to us, you've got the yellow one, you have the yellow one. But if my granddaughter goes, I want the yellow one, not the red one, I'll go, sure, I'll change that for you, not a problem.
Oh. Yes, I agree with you. Holding your own child, oh my God, I still get responsibility. It's such an amazing experience, and we're very, very fortunate, I think, to have had that, to be experiencing that in this lifetime. What I would like to explain to our audience today is that, yes, we're very fortunate. We are grandparents. However, that special relationship can be forged between people who aren't that, privileged. You know, if you're an older person and you have younger families in your neighbourhood who, especially in this day and age where people haven't necessarily got family around, what a great opportunity to be able to reach out.
Fantastic, because you don't have to be a biological grandparent, as you say. You can be a mentor grandparent to anyone that crosses your path that's willing to have that exchange with you. To, you know, when I walk down the street and I see a little child doing something cute, I always stop and say something really positive to them, because it just feels that every child in the world is a precious being, and if you can add to them even in one moment of your life, you can add to their journey by reflecting some love back to them, or some kindness, or something positive that just lights their face. And that's the joy, isn't it, Annette, when their faces light up and you know that you've touched their heart.
Yes, and like those special bonds, aren't they just, well, very, very special? I look forward to being able to treat my grandparents. You know, as a parent, you have the responsibility of authority. And yes, we've got that, but it's a step away. You know, the parents are there to raise with a discipline. And as you said, we can ease back on that.
Yeah. I love that easing back. I have to say, I love it. Yeah, what would you like to do now? Let's do it. Whereas when I was a mother, it was like, put your clothes on, eat your vegetables. Come on, we're going to be late. It's time to go. And there were out of 3 under 3, you know, there was always one that you were dragging along that wasn't ready. They weren't in the mood to go yet. It was always under a lot of stress that you were achieving tasks. Or for me personally, I was always under a lot of stress to get things done. And of course, 3 children, they don't always want to do the same thing at the same time, let's face it. And as a mother, you're trying to herd them into this thing that you, whatever it is that you want them to do. But as a grandparent, sometimes you just have one at a time and they can tell you what they want. And mostly you're happy to give it to them. Do they want to go to the park? Do they want to draw? Whatever they want to do. Whereas as a mother, I didn't have that opportunity, working full time, being a mother, running a household. I understand this generation's time poor. Do you understand that time poorness, if that's a word that the current generation has?
They're juggling so many balls, and that's where we as grandparents are very fortunate, because we can step in and assist, especially when we live as close as you and I do to our children. I'm so blessed because I can see them and I can help out. You know, they can ring me and say, what are you doing this afternoon? There's, you know, it's a slight emergency. And that fills my heart with joy to be able to say, sure, yep, I can come.
Yeah, I love being asked. I really love it. There's very few occasions when I have to say, I can't do it today, very few. And so when I'm available, and I love that. One of the things that we're getting in the new house is a cuddle chair. So it's a chair that's twice as wide as I am. And we're calling it the cuddle chair, so that's where the grandchildren and I get to cuddle, because we'll fit on the same chair together. So the house isn't quite finished yet, and the kids go, have you got the cuddle chair yet? And I go, yes, I've already got the cuddle chair. I purchased it off a friend. It's already there. It's waiting. So they all already know. We started the cuddle. What I love is how we started the cuddle, Annette, which was my little Thomas wanted to play with the phone when he was little. So I taught him how to play with the timer on the clock. And so we'd have 5-minute hugs. So he'd set the clock for 5 minutes, the alarm, and then he would just lay absolutely still in my arms, giving me the most beautiful hug until the alarm went off. And then so we started calling them 5-minute hugs. They went on a lot longer than 5 minutes in the end, but that's how they started. They started as 5-minute hugs with Grammy.
Isn't that beautiful? See, this is what I love about sharing, because I like the idea of the cuddle chair, and I love the idea of the timed hugs that then extend and extend. Wonderful. And we're teaching children time.
Well, that's right. There was a multiple of things that came just in that moment. And I love that, being able to teach people things. So when I say goodnight to little Emily, who's 3, I use sign language. I love you in sign language, and she signs it back. So when we've been watching the COVID things on TV, she goes, what are they doing in the corner? And I go, they're talking with their hands like you and I do. And so then we started saying thank you and using other signs. I don't know a lot, but I know enough to teach a 3-year-old a couple of things. And so she's already doing some signs. You know, it's just beautiful to be able to introduce them to things that their parents wouldn't have time for or wouldn't consider. But just little things that I know that I can go, I can teach you these things. Yeah.
Oh, yes. And I like the way that you said a lot of the time, or most of the time, that you can do it. I think it's really important that we consider ourselves as well. And I now understand, though, my mother's point of view. She would change plans. So in the end, I would say, what are you doing on such and such, before I told her what I wanted. However, Robyn, as a grandparent myself, I understand her completely.
Because it's a priority, isn't it? Like nothing else that you're doing mostly is more important than being with that child when the time is right. Nothing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yes. And so, like you, there are times when I'll say, oh, sorry, I'm doing X or Y. But yes, most of the time, you're right. It's relatively easy. I laughed one day just recently. A girlfriend and I, who are both grandparents and very hands-on, had set up a luncheon, a care visit. And I had to ring and say, I'm really sorry, I've been called. And she said, well, I've just put the phone down from my son, and I have to change too. So
there's many of us in the world doing the same thing. And during lockdown, that brought sanity. I think the grandchildren kept me sane in a time when we've been locked down. And my daughter had a baby in that time, so needed me to be caregiving to her, the baby, and my 3-year-old granddaughter. So the lockdown actually helped me be even closer, because there weren't extended people that could step in. So that's been even more amazing, really. I love, Annette, how we can teach them things. Like, I think about what sort of people I'd love my grandchildren to be in the world: compassionate, kind, loving, generous. And so I get to think about those things. And so if I'm eating a chocolate, I'll always say, would you like some of my chocolate? I'd really like to share it with you. And even if next time they've got a chocolate they're not in the mood to share, I'm role modelling how life could be. And mostly they will share with me. They'll say that. And so Nikki, for example, will send Emily out, if we're having a little ice cream, send out for her to give one to me, so that we're actually developing the loving things. We always say, I love you, when we meet and when we leave. And for the baby, like, you've just got to smile at her and her whole body smiles back at you. She's only 6 months old, but she initiates the smiling already.
Yes.
So teaching that joy, so compassion, when there's another child and they're not sharing. Or I learned something really interesting from Dr. Rosina McAlpine, who's been my role model for parenting. She said, when you're having children come over, an only child especially, as Emily has been, isn't used to sharing their toys. So you say to them, is there any toys in the room that you really don't want someone else to touch? And usually there might be 1 or 2. Let's put those toys away in a cupboard. Right. Is everything else out here, are you happy to share that with your friend that's coming? And then when they come, there's no fights over, I didn't want her to touch that. Like, it's really gives them control. And then a sense of sharing, because there is always something really precious that someone might touch and you might go, oh, I wish you hadn't touched that. And children, especially when they're up front, they have that. So yesterday when someone was coming, we said the same, and she actually put away one thing and said, no, this is mine. I don't want to share this one. So we put it up, and then everything else was shared. So those little things about control, sharing, loving, we're teaching them how to be in the world. And I didn't think like this as much when I was a mother, a parent, but I do now.
Yes. Yeah. And it is, and then we can help our children subtly by being role models as well. I must admit, I went into my son's place recently and put my bag on the floor, as I always do, because their 3-year-old knows that it's Nanny's bag and you don't look into it. But the 10-month-old or 9-month-old, whatever, had had learnt to crawl. I soon learned. Okay, we've hit the stage where you have to move the bag. And to look at my own home and look at, okay, so what needs to be out of reach for their safety, rather than, or if there is something precious that I would be concerned or upset if something happened to it. But it's more their safety. Oh, what can they do with that?
I'm way so careful, and especially, you know, if I've got medication that I might have, or, you know, there's so many things that I will, especially in the new house where I've got a little bit more space, make sure that there's nothing out, that because otherwise you're doing the no, aren't you? You're saying no, and you know that's not how to build a relationship. You want to keep no for when they're about to run across the road or something like that. That reminds me of a beautiful game that I developed to stop the children running away or from running across the road.
Yeah.
So what we do, there's two things. So the first thing is we practice stop and go. So you're holding their hand or you're next to them and they say, go, and you start running. And then one of you says, stop. And you have to stop exactly in that moment and not move until the person says go. And we take turns in stopping and going. And so now we only use stop for emergencies. We never use it for anything else that we don't like that they're doing, only for emergencies. So now, unless it's the game and we're playing it, if they go near the road or touch the stove or do something, we just go stop, and she stops. I thumped the desk, sorry. She stops in an absolute instance because we developed it as fun. And the other one is, you know how we all play chasey. We're chasing the kids round around the car, well, not the car, round around the house. They love chasey. But I could see that then when we wanted her to come, she was keep going because chasey was fun.
Right.
So now we play a game that she loves even more, where she gets about 100 yards away from me. And then we do a wiggly, snaky running towards each other, and then I pick her up and spin her around. So it's running towards us and not away from us. So now that's become more fun than chasing. It's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea.
Stop go is going to save lives.
Yes.
I taught a lady in the park stop go the other day because a child ran to the road and wouldn't stop when she said stop, but luckily there wasn't a car coming. So, stranger danger, you know, I stopped and I talked to her and I said, let me teach you this game. And actually she played it with her son while I was there, and it worked a treat. She could not believe how well it worked. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to put that into my think tank too, because there's always, when children want to run ahead, and yes, if they're not, I know I said congratulations to a mother recently. She was on a bike a little way behind her two children who I'd come across first. They came to us and they had stopped at the street. Now, mind you, it was only a small one, a minor, but the important thing is that we know that it doesn't matter, because it's out of those places that sometimes something will come unexpectedly. You know, on the busy roads, we know we have to stop and watch very carefully. But it's the unexpected that we're also trying to teach them about.
And of course, I don't know about you, Annette, but my 3-year-old runs so fast, I'm lucky to keep up. So if I had to run to save them, you know, I might not actually catch them in time, even though I'm pretty fast, but I'm not that fast for her. So you have to counteract your abilities as well, because we do a lot of walking along the beach here. It's just such a beautiful thing to do, to walk on the beach. So what I love, Annette, is developing these fun little things that you can do to help the parent shape their child into who they want them to be. You know, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it, really?
Well, it is. And these days we've got so many avenues in which to help people, because this broadcast, for instance. There's social media where people put up ideas, and yes, so we are very fortunate. And of course, when we're out and about, to be able to pass on our experiences, as you did with the stop and go. Fabulous.
You and I are a lot like that. We'll stop and talk to anybody about anything when it feels right in our heart. We're not intrusive if it doesn't feel right, but mostly, don't you just love telling a parent, oh, that's a gorgeous interaction you're having. Oh, look at that. You know, I love that. The way, you know, I'm often at playgrounds where there's younger mothers, and I just love seeing how they look after them. That's when they're not on the phone, you know, like, but if they're on their phone and their child looks like they're in danger, I'll go, you better look up, your child's about to fall off the slide, or can you grab him or something? Because, you know, it's a different world that we live in, isn't it? Because a lot of the world is on social media. And that's a time when we need to be engaging with the child and having that eye contact, because the eye contact and the smile from the heart is a really important thing. And yet, as an adult, as a parent now, they're getting their reflections, some of their reflections from the response they get on the phone. And so it's a trade-off, isn't it, to be mindful of being present with the child when you're with them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And isn't it easy to do? Answer the phone while you're with the child. It's easy. Of course it is.
Oh, yes. Well, it's fascinating even when we're out socially over a meal, I smile at how people can use their phones, and I'll comment and I'll say, aren't we hilarious? We're here, but we're both checking our phones or whatever. And there has been the occasion where I've been waiting for an important call. So I'll put my phone on the table and say, now, I hope you don't mind. Excuse me, there's a call I'm expecting. But otherwise, it either rings off or, you know, I don't hear it in my bag, which is really good.
Yeah. I have to say I overstepped the mark before lockdown when we went out to dinner, and there was a table of 12 people next to us. Every single person on the phone was on the phone with their head down, every person. And I did say something. I have to be honest, I did say something. Yeah, I went, are you guys having dinner together? Doesn't look like it. I could not help myself, and they laughed, but they didn't put their phones down. So no interaction whatsoever. When you've paid all this money to go out to dinner, it was obvious a family function. Not the adults, not the younger people. Everyone just had their heads down separately on their phones. And it just reminded me so much about what's really important. So why pay the money? It must have been, you know, a birthday or something, but why pay the money and go out as a family if you're not actually going to be present? And it's not their fault. We have to teach them, you know, that because they've stepped into a different world to us, which they might have been texting each other across the table. You know, that's how it happens. It's an interesting time, and I understand that the parents of our grandchildren are time poor. They're more time poor than we ever were. When you think how much social media takes up in people's lives, that makes them so much more time poor. But on the other side, don't they get to go, oh, what do you think about a headache with a fever? I'll ask Google. You know? Or anybody got a recipe for something? You know, what would you do about this? And there's always 10 different replies for them in an instant. So we wouldn't have had that. We would have gone, oh, I wonder if this temperature, I wonder if it's too high. Oh, who should I ask? You know, we never have that instantaneous response that they have. So in that way, social media is amazing as a parenting tool. Obviously, you can't believe everything that people say, but you can get enough ideas to understand maybe what's going on. Do you think so?
Yes, absolutely. What I like, doesn't matter what particular time in history or now we're talking about, it's boundaries. Because there is a use. I love my phone. I think it's great. It connects me. The other morning, you know, I could ring someone in the US, and last night it was somebody in the UK. Fabulous. You know, I'm very, very fortunate. When you think of, well, my grandmother, she had to walk down to the phone box to ring her daughter or her son. So yes, times have changed. However, it's really important that we look at the boundaries and prioritise. How are we spending our time? Is that family dinner an obligation, or do we really want to be there and be interacting with each other?
It's a question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is a question. And I think we have to learn to engage with people again on that face-to-face basis. And I think over this time of being locked down in COVID, we haven't had a lot of that face-to-face interaction with our extended family, only the people that you live with, or if you've got to be caregiving. So all those skills, we're talking about, you know, 270 days in lockdown. So that's a lot of time that you've taken away from being present with people. And for someone perhaps who's got a child on the autism spectrum, that's really important, because the skills that you need to teach and that you want them to develop is that ability to relate to other people. So if the world's really insular and they're only relating to the people that live in the household, then this is detrimental to their development. So it's really important that we get back out. And I'm so happy that we're getting back out there tomorrow.
I know, yes. I wonder how many parties there'll be at midnight tonight.
Yes. And I wonder if the supermarkets will be open again at midnight, or like they used to be. So, Annette, what's the greatest joy that you have in parenting, grandparenting?
Oh, I think it's that if I walk in the door and it's Nana, isn't that just so gorgeous? It melts my heart. And
there's no one. Yeah, go on.
No. I was just thinking back to when we weren't supposed to be doing that, and my granddaughter, as a 3-year-old, couldn't help herself and grabbed me around the knees, and I thought, oh, you precious darling. Yeah.
I don't think anyone else in the world greets you with so much love and a grandchild with their big smile and their open arms. And I think that for me, I can't speak for you, but for me, that softened my heart. You know, I'm not as judgmental. I'm not as cranky. You know, the unconditional love that they wash over your heart with, it has to have a positive effect on who you are in the world, because to be bathed in love, it has to make you a more loving, gentle, kind soul. It just has to in my way of thinking. And of course it has. I love being a bit softer and a little bit less critical. Yeah.
Sure. To me, it's the chicken and the egg, Robyn, because how do our children, yes, to a point it's innate. However, children, sadly, there are some children out there who aren't in a loving environment. And so here we are able to ensure that our grandchildren are in a loving environment when they come to us, as well as in their home. And then your experiences in the playground, you know, when we can pass on comments to people too, because I don't know, as a parent, I was always judging myself. And if my mother made a comment, oh, you know, how this woman was, a friend of mine was a fabulous mother. And I can remember thinking, yeah, but what about me? You know?
I was a terrible mother. I'll put my hand up. I felt like I was a failure at being a mother. I always felt stressed. And,
right.
I don't know. I just felt like other people were better mothers than I was. You know, they seemed to be able to sit down and do craft with them, or things that I had no interest in. I wasn't arty at all. Whereas now I'm really arty. But, things that I just thought, well, I can't do that. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have enough time. I'm not interested. So I often had the mother guilt. I had so much guilt. I had a bucket load of guilt. So it's nice not to have that guilt. And do you know what? I feel really proud to see how my children parent. They're way better parents than me. Way better.
Yes. But where did they learn it from? It's either what we did or what we didn't do. So in our own way, we've created the people. We've helped to create the people who they are.
Yeah.
Anaya has joined the conversation, which is wonderful.
Oh, Anaya. With her beautiful stories from her beautiful grandchildren.
Well, she's saying how, a real softening of the heart. She agrees totally with you. For me, it opened my heart in brand new ways that I could never have dreamed of.
No.
Yeah. It always looks different from the outside looking in. It is so important to also remember that we, like everyone else, did the best that we could. Yeah, great point. And the lessons we learned are so valuable and help us to become wonderful grandparents, which is so right. I mean, you were talking about feeling like other parents were better. I can remember, Robyn, thinking, when my kids go to other people's places, that they'll like that better than home. I mean, and from the child's point of view, that wouldn't have been the case, but that's how I felt because I went, so, I can look. Thank you for letting me remember that because, oh my goodness.
And I used to not want to go places because with 3 children under 3 and then 3 under 5, whatever it was, I felt like we were a tornado. We'd arrive at someone's house and every child was touching something at the same time. And I just felt like we were a tornado that came. And so then I had guilt because I couldn't control 3 children at once. Crazy. What I do love, Annette, is the fact that the baby that became my grandchildren, the egg that became them, I carried. I love that. Yes. Because when you have a daughter, every egg that she'll ever have is already born in her ovary. And when she's a teenager, they develop. So I say that the egg that became my grandchildren, I carried it.
I have heard that. Thank you again for reminding me about that. However, I have sons, so that's all right.
Yeah, I wonder how that works. Let me think.
Yeah. No, I had heard about the eggs. I mean, that's such an amazing fact. I mean, I know our bodies, I just get blown away so often with how incredible our bodies are. And when I read that the eggs are there right from the word, you go, oh, wow.
It is. It's absolutely amazing. And that's why it is the gift of life that keeps on giving, isn't it? And, of course, you needed a man to make the eggs. So it's like both of you are going, through in that egg. It has both your husband and yourself in there. It's pretty amazing. Life is just so amazing.
It is.
Rosina was telling me that she had a troubled childhood, so she didn't have a happy place in her home, but she had a grandmother, and her grandmother told her that she could do anything and never to let anyone tell you that you couldn't. So even though she was hearing at home that she was stupid and a lot of other things I wouldn't say on air, she had this grandmother that believed in her. And so for her, a grandmother, and I know we're saying grandmothers because that's who we are, but grandfather would be exactly the same, that to have one person, one mentor in your life who was constantly telling you that you're going to be okay, that you can do anything you want to, that you're the angel in their life, that allowed the negativity to be washed with this beautiful, positive, loving grandmother. So the grandmother and the grandfather can actually have a massive role even when things aren't good in the household that the child is living in.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And how fortunate. Like a girlfriend of mine has children, however, she will never have grandchildren, but she had the opportunity of being that caregiver to friends' children. And I think how fortunate for the children as well, because their grandparents weren't readily available at this time. And yet this beautiful Scottish woman was. And of course, she stayed very close to the family. And that's such a blessing for both. And so I'm encouraging people, you might not be, as you said earlier, Robyn, a biological grandparent, but that doesn't mean that you cannot share your love with people around you.
And I think there's even programs where you can volunteer. You know, you can actually volunteer to be a grandparent to children who don't have grandparents. How amazing. You know, that would just be incredible. Is my beautiful Annette still there? I love her grandchildren's stories. They just light my heart. When she puts something up that one of the grandkids has said, it just cracks me up. It's always so funny. We love that, Annette.
Yes, there's social media for you. Gorgeous. Annetta's saying, how to control the uncontrollable. How do you manage with 3 children under 3, Robyn, is beyond me. And of course, I had a similar situation with twins and a singleton. I do believe we are given what we can deal with. How we deal with it is up to us. But
and I thought babies were cute, you see.
Yeah.
And when they got to about 9 months old, I'd gone, oh, I want another one. Yes. Just kept lucky we stopped, I think. But, my 3 children are the light of my life, really. And funny you should say about twins, because I'm a twin. And, yeah, so I have a school report written by a teacher that says the twins are doing well and will progress to grade 3. So we were called the twins. We weren't seen as individuals. Even in a school teacher's report, we were the twins. I'm sure that didn't happen in your twins.
No, but interestingly, grandparents would say the twins.
Yeah. Like we were the one entity, the one. And I have a twin brother, so we weren't the same.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we were brought up in a rural school. So what that means is it was a state school, and there was one room in the playground of the state school that had 4 children in prep, 4 in grade 1, 4 in grade 2, all the way to grade 6. And it was to train teachers how to go into the country and teach all those children at once in one room. Yeah. And so we were always half the grade. You know, Ken and I were just half the grade, whatever grade we were in. So that was also, you know, a difference in our upbringing, really.
Wow. And so, and now, are you close before I make another comment from Annette? Have you got a special bond?
Well, not in distance, we're not. He's in Geelong, I'm in Melbourne. Not really, no. Yeah. I think we're not. I think when a mother passes away fairly early, a family loses its one point of contact where you would meet together. I think that's the missing
I've heard
factor.
That. Yes.
Yeah. 6 kids, no house to meet. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Annette has a little tip for us. She loves sharing her grandchildren's stories, and there's another one coming up on Facebook later today. So.
Ooh, Annette. I ended up having to ask permission. When mine got old enough, I asked permission to share their stories, because there's so many funny stories. But as they've got older, I can't even remember the story that I recently told, but I thought I'd better ask first. So I actually rang up and said, I'm being interviewed today and I'd really like to tell this story. Is that okay? And he goes, yep, that sounds good. Yeah. So I think that's also important that which I know Anaya does. Anaya probably taught me this, that it's important to be respectful and for the children to know that you're actually talking about them. Thomas loves that I tell people about our 5-minute hugs. He loves it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Anaya, now I'll be waiting with bated breath to find out what's going to happen there.
Well, Anaya is saying that she asked Bailey the other day if it would be okay if I shared it. His whole face lit up and he was so happy to say a big yes.
Because they're so proud that you're going to be talking about them.
Yeah.
And the Bailey stories are always so incredibly funny that I think Anaya should write the book called Bailey's, what's the next word? Bailey's something. Come on, Anaya. Bailey's.
Bailey's.
Because children say the most incredible things, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yes.
Can you think of something?
I was trying to get a B word.
A B word. Oh, for Bailey.
Bailey's, yeah.
I was thinking more, can you think about something of wisdom or funny that one of your grandchildren has said?
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, I was still on the film.
Yeah. Bailey's blessings.
Oh, that's a great idea. And I'm thinking of calling it, and then Bailey said something along those lines. Oh, there you go. I don't know. That was before you said blessings, so who knows? Woo!
Bailey's blessings. But I think to be able to listen to your grandchildren and to really know where they're coming from.
Yes.
Like sometimes I might go over there and they might go, I don't want you to play today. Or, and your little heart's wounded. But, when you ask them what else is going on, you can understand that they just want to be with their mummy today. And then there's the opportunity to say it's okay to ask for what you want. And then we talk about how it's important not to hurt other people's feelings. So it opens up the opportunity for another life lesson about something.
Right.
When that happened to me, I was able to say to her, it's okay for you to ask to be alone. But if Mummy and I were getting in the car and we said, we didn't want you to come, how would you feel? She goes, sad. I'd feel really sad. And I go, well, sometimes if you say to me that you don't want to play with me, I feel sad too. So we have to talk about it so that we make it okay. And if it's your mummy you want to be with, then I can take Rosie and you can play with your mummy. So it just gives us that opportunity to teach them not to just go, I don't want to play with you, to actually think about feelings. And I think this generation is going to be even better at it than our children are. You can see the evolvement through the generations, can't you, of, children should be kept quiet and not speak. At 2, children are telling us their feelings and we're acknowledging them and trying to understand them and making their feelings important.
Yes. Yeah. I think we are becoming, I can certainly see that evolvement of, because love used to be assumed when I was growing up. I've talked about this many times with friends, and it was considered vain if you could say something positive about yourself.
Yes.
Whereas these days, fortunately, we're even more, as a grandparent, I'm even more aware. And also, Robyn, at times I've realised that I'll talk to other people about how great it is to see my kids as parents and what a good job they're doing. And I haven't told them. So then I make a point of saying, I think you're doing a remarkable job, because I wouldn't want them to have the self-doubts that I had when they are doing such a wonderful, wonderful job. Yeah.
Amazing.
Balancing everything that they have to balance.
Well, that's right. They're going to kinder, they're going to dancing, they're going to football, they're going to, basketball. They've got all these other things as well as probably working full time. And yet they're bringing up these children who are absolutely beautiful, beautiful souls, amazing. And sure, they have their ups and downs and their cranky moments and all those things that, we get a chance to help them work through. But as parents, I'm so proud of them. They're all doing a really amazing, amazing job. Isn't it good to be able to say that, Annette?
I know, yes. Yeah. And they are thoroughly enjoying this discussion, and I'm so grateful that she's making a contribution. She likes so much of what we're saying, and she wonders about, Carol, welcome. Carol suggested The Loving Adventures of Bailey. It's
The Loving Adventures of Bailey. They're certainly loving, aren't they?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
They're more what he says, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think. But anyway, thank you, Carol, for being here and making a contribution. I love about this.
So what do you think about it when your values are, say, different to your children's values?
Oh, Robyn, are you reading me?
I am.
I find it interesting. I'm very fortunate that I've said for many, many years my children love me unconditionally. And I know at times that they're very concerned for me. It's that fine line between being, well, I appreciate your concern, however, this is how I feel about this.
Yeah.
And it's me I'm talking about. Because I think it really is important that we respect each other's points of view, whether it be family or friends, and that, hey, guess what? We might not agree on something, but we can still be friends. For years we've said, we don't talk about politics or religion. Well, of course we can. We simply respect people's different points of view.
Do you think you've softened on that over time, Annette?
Oh, I don't know whether it's softened or I've become more aware.
Yeah.
And I'm more aware of communicating. Right. Yeah. So you were saying about communicating with our grandchildren on a level that I probably didn't as a parent. It's much easier to say, do this or do that, rather than, because, as you say, time. Whereas we have the time now, but we've also got the experience. And wow, I mean, I just look at my life and go, my goodness me. And I keep saying that I feel as though I'm living a charmed existence. I'm just so fortunate and so grateful for who I am and where I am. So is that softening or... I just think it's the awareness.
I have a question for you, because while you were speaking, I was thinking, because I always think, I wonder if you'd be a different teacher now, because you were a teacher. How different would you be as a teacher now than as you were when you were a teacher?
Oh, incredibly different. And I think, sadly, well, I was a better teacher in my early days than I was later on. And I'm also aware that at one stage when I was going through a really difficult time in my life, like who was I? That was the basis of it, but I didn't realise at the time. I shudder at what, as I was as a teacher. It's like, oh, no. So I'd certainly be more... humane, loving, absolutely. To be able to do that again.
Because for me, you send them off to school And you have to trust that for 6 hours a day, the person who has your child in their hands is also on a similar value pathway to you, and that they're not seeing little Johnny as a pain in the butt, but they're actually seeing him as someone who has a gap in their learning that they can fill and teach and help that child become the person that they're meant to be. And so the role that you had was incredible. As I couldn't do it. I can't be in the room with 5, you know. So I couldn't do 35. Yes.
Well, I think you can, because you haven't got that exact emotional tie. I mean, sure, I grew to like, you've got these children, as you say, 6 hours a day for a whole year. I used the end of the years were awful because you had these relationships with kids, especially if it was grade 6 and they were going off to high school, etc. Oh, listen to me, high school, that dates me. Yeah, so, however, it was easier for me to control a room full or a hall full of kids than my own 3, because you've got that emotional tie. And then, of course, grandchildren yet again. So fascinating. You know, that emotional bond changes everything. And I can remember watching other parents and going, oh, I'll never do that.
Oh, it's so easy to throw stones, isn't it? It's so easy to go, oh, look what they're doing. Whereas really, you're going to do it. You are going to do it. It's just so easy. I say, Annette, that hindsight should be available earlier. Grandparents should be the parents, and the parents could be the grandparents later, you know, so that the roles were reversed. It would be really smart, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be. I like to think that we are getting better. As you say, the generational, we can see the improvement, so to speak. And so I'm grateful for the life that I've had, because I wouldn't be who I am today without all of that other. It's interesting because people say to me, because Barry passed when my boys were teenagers, that was tough, and especially for them. And people will say to me, oh, you've done a really good job. And I go, I don't see it that way. I think they were remarkable as well, and they are remarkable young men. So fascinating. Maybe I've got a little bit of thinking to do. Anaya said earlier that she had something that she can work on healing, and I'm going, oh, I think I need to do a little bit too. Interesting.
Yeah, look, it's a beautiful time in life, and it does bring up stuff. It does bring up stuff. But, you know, the one constant that underpins all our relationships is love. You know,
yes,
our parents loved us, even though at times we might not have known. Our grandparents loved us, we might not remember. And we love our children, and our children love their children, and we love their children. Like, love underpins all of it. It's the most solid foundation to help a human being become the best person that they can possibly be. And that's all I want for my grandchildren, is that they feel loved, nurtured, and are kind. You know, kindness. I want to teach kindness. I've touched your heart.
Yeah.
Humanity's heart. There you are.
Yeah. Yes. There's, and they are saying, ha ha ha, no such thing as secondhand experiences. Or a secondhand experience.
Oh, that brings to light on secondhand rose. The baby's called Rosie, and yesterday I started singing Secondhand Rose, and my daughter looked at me like I had 3 heads. She goes, I've never heard that song. That's an awful song. Awful. This poor little child getting everything secondhand. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Some of the words that we sang, and yet I didn't realise the poignancy of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even the books, like I start reading a book and they're always got something really judgmental or, you know, a nasty beast or something in them. We start reading a book and Nick goes, we close that book and we put that book away, because the old books and some of the new books aren't what you want to read to a child, to a 3-year-old. Have you found that, Annette?
I must admit, I tend to my children have great books for their kids, so I haven't noticed that especially. However, when I look back at like the fairy tales, and I must admit at one stage I picked them up at the op shop thinking, oh, well, I'll read this one day. Well, I haven't. No, because there's so much better literature out there. You know, the ones I Love You So. Oh, I can go on and on. There are some that are absolute favourites.
I know. I love My Mummy Because, you know, I love those books. They're just so beautiful, aren't they? But so we don't read those old nursery things anymore, because even the Disney ones always had some crisis in them. So, you know, everything's changing, and I guess that makes us sound old, but let's use the word wise, do you think?
Now, may I read something from Annette? Interestingly, one of my grandparents, a grandmother, and I were very close when I was a child. When I saw her again as a teenager, she took an instant dislike to me and made no bones about telling me. I was so hurt and devastated at the time, but my grandmother showed me what I would never do as a grandparent myself. I had to always make sure that I let my grandmother know in subtle ways and in big ways too, just how much they meant to me.
Wow.
It is interesting how I can remember I was in Hawaii at one stage, away for both my parents' birthdays, because in September, they're only days apart. And a friend over there said, oh, I could never write cards. I was saying thank you to my parents for what they taught me. And I said, well, it's, as I said earlier, what we do and what we don't do that then gives our children the guidance to make them the best parents that they can be. And it's through experience, isn't it? What we've experienced. Look at the people who sadly have been abused as children and yet then go on to help others in that situation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know, it's beautiful when you think about what Annette just said, that, you know, she is one of my role models as a grandparent. You know, when she put up the stories and tell me about her love for her grandchildren and Bailey and all the things that they say. I'm sorry, Annette, I can't remember the name of your other grandchild. But
Abby.
But Annette set the bar for love for a grandchild. So the gift that grandparent gave her was the ability to always be on her loving game. Beautiful, Annette, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So I think we should forgive ourselves for any mistakes that we made while parenting.
Yes, absolutely.
Because mistakes are great moments that we can learn from. I think it's really important to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you made while parenting. It opens up the heart even more for loving.
Right.
I had a lot of forgiving. Well,
the thing is, it is important to forgive because we're unable to change them, but we can change our view of how we see it. Yeah.
Yes, I'll never forget coming home one day and my in-laws had turned up at our house. They never ever did that, uninvited. They only came a couple of times a year and it was always to a function. I'd gone to work, David had gone to work, and my young teenagers, probably I wouldn't have left them now, were home alone. Jackie, oh, sorry, Jack, put ink, so one of my children, it might not have been Jackie, put ink into quarters of oranges and threw them at a car. So that was happening when the in-laws arrived. I hadn't done the dishes, I hadn't put the washing away. The house was absolutely trashed with toys everywhere. It was absolutely a mess. And that day stuck with me forever. That for me was one of my bad parenting days that I reflected on and went, how could you have made that choice? To leave them on their own. But the guilt that I had was not just to the children. The guilt was that I wouldn't have met the expectations of my in-laws. That was like, oh, they'll never forgive me for that. Oh, I can't talk about it. I was so ashamed that I couldn't even bring it up to talk to them. And yet when my mother-in-law passed away, I looked after her at home and helped her pass away. And it was like the most intimate, beautiful moment. And it was in that caring for her that I felt that I was the best I could be with her. Whereas when I was a ratty, frustrated, tired mother, I felt like I didn't come up to the expectations of them, because they were beautiful people who brought their children up in a beautiful way. And, I was one of those time poor, crazy, stressed people who couldn't do it all, but tried to do it all. So I think it's interesting to reflect back on that, to forgive myself and to remember that I got to be there with my mother-in-law in the most precious times of her life. So again, it's that circle of life, isn't it?
Yes.
It just keeps bringing you back an opportunity to be the very best version of yourself you can be. I feel really good to be this age.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I agree. See, the thing is, your mother-in-law, we presume so much, and we're judging ourselves, because she, for all you know, she might have remembered a time in her life that was like that day.
I wonder. I always saw her as pretty perfect, never putting a step wrong. Right. My mother-in-law ironed the face washers.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Undies. She ironed undies.
Yes. Friend of
so,
mine
did she? Yeah, there's a lot of, they had, because they were stay-at-home mums, so they had the time and they wanted it to be perfect. So their houses were perfect. There was never anything out of place, not ironed, like ironing sheets. I could never imagine ironing a sheet.
Yeah.
Even when I had someone doing my ironing, I never asked them to iron a sheet. It just, but that perfectness. And of course, I don't expect my children to be perfect. And maybe they didn't expect me to be perfect, but I thought that they expected me to be perfect.
Yes. We could do another show on that, Robyn. Perceptions.
Oh, thank you so much. I've really loved it.
Thank you. I think we've just done so much for ourselves as well as other people. And I know Anaya is greatly touched by what you have said. So as I
love you, Anaya. I love you, Annette.
Thank you, Robyn. I have loved being with you, and I hope that we can continue, actually see each other in person soon. Wouldn't that be fantastic?
Well, next week even.
Yes. Woo! Hey, everyone, we're celebrating here tonight.
Yes.
Wherever you are, I trust that you can celebrate, and that, as Robyn said, let's forgive ourselves. Robyn's certainly done that. Good on you. And we can soften ourselves. I know that I'm always learning, and it's my great delight, Robyn, to be able to share here on Angel Heart Radio, because what a joy. So thank you, Annette. Thank you to all of our audience, and thank you especially, Robyn. It's been an absolute joy today.
Thank you, Annette. Absolute pleasure.
And everybody, may we spread the love.